And this is a very good opportunity, I think, to draw into the conversation Hilary Calvert, who usually joins us this week to give her political assessment and the lie of the land. Hilary, welcome to the show. Good to talk to you again.
Good morning. Good morning.
Does anybody really believe that because Kiri Allan's resigned, that is the end of the Labour Party?
Yeah. I think it's the wrong question, Michael. Does anybody believe that Chris Hipkins has any control over his cabinet or can run a decent ship? That's more the question.
Can. He doesn't need his cabinet ministers. It's him. At the end of the day, it's a presidential election. It'll be him versus Luxon, won't it? Those cabinet ministers...
No, it won't be.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No, I don't. And as you said about... I've just been listening to you. As you said about David Parker, if he can't... Some of them are leaving and had to leave, and he can't even hold on to David Parker because... And he's in the competent side of the spectrum. You know, what sort of leader is he? Because it's a leadership thing to me. Where's he going with it?
Yeah, but I think this is all Jacinda Ardern's legacy, isn't it, at the end of the day?
It is. And, yes, so with Kiri, all the stuff sort of started, it's sort of done a circle now. Kiri's, the first problems we heard about were way back from Jacinda's day, in the sense that it was people who worked in her office and saying she was yelling at them and things. And Kiri's answer to that, so that was a year ago or something, and it just resurfaced, bubbled to the surface again. Kiri's response to that was, this is a high-pressure environment, or whatever it is, you know, shit will get off the potty, or, you know, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the fire. Now we get round to the other end, and other people, not Kiri, but other people are saying about her, well, you can't expect her to perform well when she's broken up with somebody or something. Now, she was saying to her staff, get over yourself. This environment is like that. So she ought to be held to her own standards, I'd have thought. It's interesting where we go with some of that. Some of it has brought up, as Kiri always seems to have, that she's a Māori wahine. Back when she was first at Rising Star, she had that treatment for cervical cancer, whatever, and said at the time 40%, the headline was 13% chance of getting through this or something. And actually what it is 40% chance if you have stage 3, but only 13% if you're a wahine Māori. And so she said 13%. Well, she's not really a typical Māori at that sense as to what would happen. She's going to follow advice. She's going to get advice. She's going to have the money to get resources and whatever else. So she was saying that then, and each time she's popped up, it's about being a Māori. So when you say things about her being brown and left and Labour and things, it's her narrative, not one that you've just invented. So I think that's interesting that she has put herself out there as Māori. I mean, it's one of her things, but it's not all of them. And it turns out another of her things is that she may struggle a bit to deal with major issues, and it would be difficult when you're at that level. And I thought it was interesting that Chris Hipkins, I think, said something in the middle of that argy-bargy yesterday, like, you shouldn't be, we should be tolerant of people who have mental health issues at high levels or something, and I think it mirrored the foundation, mental health foundation guy. And it's one thing saying we have some sympathy with people who unravel. It's another thing saying we want people at those top levels to be so diverse that we include people with current significant issues. I mean, really? Do we? Can we afford to have... Would we say, well, the Prime Minister, you know, has major depression for 3 months a year and can't function, but it's good because we have a diverse Prime Minister. We just say we're not picking on people who get depressed for 3 months each year, but it's not a suitable job for them. Wouldn't we?
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, the head of the Mental Health Foundation you've just quoted, I've quoted him this morning, but he says he's bipolar. And I'm going, okay, good luck on that one. How did you get appointed to that job? Just quietly, I guess because he's mentally ill. But I have to say that if somebody came to me and said I'm bipolar, I think I can do this job, this very high-powered, well-paid government taxpayer-funded job, I'd say, I'm not sure you can, thanks. It'd be a bit like turning up with some sort of physical disability that stops you going, I don't know, becoming a regional council chair and walking around farmers in gumboots because you can't walk.
Yeah. Well, you and I know that Parliament is full of people with diverse mental talents and...
Well, no, but to be fair, there aren't a lot of mad people in Parliament. I mean, to get to there, you might be ambitious, you might be a bit odd, but I don't know that you're mentally ill.
No, you don't go past sociopath, probably. But
no.
But I wouldn't rule out that there isn't or hasn't been people in Parliament who are sociopaths. So there is a bit of diversity there, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It takes a certain sort of person, doesn't it?
Well, actually, that'll be next. Somebody will say, I'm a psychopath. I've been diagnosed as a psychopath, but I'll be just fine for this job. And say, it's all right, we've got enough of them. We've got already enough chief executives of government departments. Thanks very much.
David Parker, though.
Well, David Parker's fascinating, but you and I know him a bit better, and perhaps we should explain this. We know him in his role of the Minister for the Environment in our former jobs. But
yes.
He's a dogmatic individual. He's bright, yes. I think he's trained as a lawyer from memory.
Yes.
He's had
another commercial lawyer, although Kiri Allan's not going to go down in history as a commercial lawyer, is she?
No.
But David Parker was a commercial lawyer.
And he has experienced to a degree in the corporate world, but he's also very self-aware that he's a bright man. And obviously he's taken this Chris Hipkins, let's concentrate on the basic stuff, to heart by his resignation as Revenue Minister.
Well, there's two bits he's done. That was something he held close to his heart, the capital gains or wealth tax. And the resource management reform was the other thing. And that...
Yes, that's right.
His absolute with it, I think. And he's tried hard. And because of one thing or another, including the sort of co-governance thing in the background of it, it's a shambles. It's not, we really did need reform, and he did his best, and it's not going to be, and that must hang heavy on him a bit. He knows that he's not going to go down in history as the person who made a great job of resource management reform, and through no want of trying.
Mm.
So I think that's a significant part of his unhappiness. He must look forward to leaving Parliament at the end of his life, having not achieved the two things he most wanted. But the difference between just incidentally, between a wealth tax and a capital gains tax, capital gains is a principled tax in the sense that capital and income are
treated the same.
Not distinct.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So it isn't fair to tax one and not the other.
Yeah.
So it's proper to have a capital gains tax, and people all over the spectrum think it's proper and principled. It won't necessarily get a whole lot more money, but there we go, it's principled. That's the point, because it can be avoided and done other things too. But the point is that it's a principled thing, and everyone should really support it who believes in the principle of taxing people when they end up with income or whatever. The wealth tax, however, is what we've got in local government. And the reason why local government isn't concerned in the same way as central government is that local government doesn't wake up in the morning like central government did recently and say central government woke up and found that a whole lot of companies didn't make the money they made the year before, and because of interest rates and all sorts of things, COVID, whatever, $2 billion fall in the budget. And I don't understand why Treasury didn't see it coming, because the rest of us did. So $2 billion less company tax that they got in. However, local government doesn't ever get less money coming in. They know exactly how much they're going to get, because theirs is a wealth tax, not a capital gains tax or an income tax. So they charge everybody, if they've got a house worth twice as much, they charge them more. So they don't ever have a big gap in their budget in that way.
Just
they
to explain, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. I didn't explain it properly in my introduction talking about the wealth tax. Just to get it absolutely correct, they are talking about a capital gains tax, but the wealth tax was that they'd give you the first $10,000 tax-free by an increased tax on what they say was the wealthiest New Zealanders. So if you had net wealth, this is net wealth, not earnings, just net wealth, above $5 million, you were going to pay an extra 1.5% tax rate on that.
And there's another bit to it too for the Greens. There's two set bits.
And they would, yes.
But essentially, you don't lose it like they just lost $2 billion because people didn't earn anything.
Yes.
You get it regardless. And that's a really attractive thing for a government.
Yeah.
And for local government. They don't even realise how lucky they are, local government, that they take the money, whether or not you earn. So if you earn from inflation or whatever else, if you earn more each year for 5 years and end up 20% more in your income, local government can charge you 100% more in your rates, and you'll still have to pay it. So it's got nothing to do with how well you are off. And so in a government sense, the tax take goes down when people don't earn so much.
Hilary, you're breaking up a bit to me. That's all right. Ben, can you just try and get Hilary on a better line, because I do not want to lose what she's got to say. If you could just do that, Ben, that would be cool, because she's just breaking up a little bit. All right. Let's go and try you now, Hilary. No, she's not there now, Ben.
Okay.
So, are you there now?
Okay. Yes,
hopefully,
I'm here now.
I can hear you better. Yeah, you were breaking up a bit. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay. Yeah. So
now, going back though,
it's a more attractive thing for a government.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about local government. Yes, that's right. And I mean, that's the reason why local government's so out of control, is because it could just immediately, whatever its appetite, go and grab that money from people and push its rates using wealth, as you say, as its primary indicator. Parker's gone from Revenue Minister. He sits at Cabinet. The interesting thing, I don't know if you heard our 10 o'clock news, but Hipkins is saying that he couldn't guarantee a high place ranking for David Parker on the Labour Party list. And I must admit, I chuckled at that.
Yes, he's really, David Parker's saying, I'm out of here. I'm not, he's really saying to Labour, if you win at the next election, and you, Chris Hipkins, have that approach, I'm out of here, I'm not part of that. And so he's not going to want a high up list place. He's going to retire, I would have thought.
You think so? You think he's that grumpy that he's going to take off?
Well, if he's saying he resigns as a minister because he doesn't agree with the policy, which is arguably a principled thing to do, how would it solve itself if Chris Hipkins was Prime Minister again in the next government?
Oh, I think I can answer that question. And it's this way. The Greens have got their policy on taxation. Were Labour and the Greens and Te Pāti Māori to be the winning combination in October, Hilary, then Te Pāti Māori and the Greens could easily, would place their tax policy on the table, and Chris Hipkins would say, I had no option. I ruled it out, but the reality is this is MMP politics.
Yeah. No, he can't, because, when I say he can't, he has said, not on my watch, over my dead body, or watch my lips, or whatever it is.
But...
but the Nats were already saying don't believe a word he says.
Yes.
You can't trust him to say anything because he won't do what he says he's going to do. For example, he won't do that. So he's got to convince the people that he will do what he says he's going to do. And he's stuck with the Greens saying, not with us. We will go on the cross benches if we need to, which is sort of a bit, at the same time, they're not going to because they just love being ministers. And at the same breath, they're saying, we want more and more ministers, so vote more for us. And they're saying, vote for somebody who doesn't care for the trappings of office, who just has principles. Well, for God's sake. Really?
Well, does anybody believe that?
It wouldn't be the Greens.
I think...
I mean...
No, but I also...
Do,
listen, I don't know anybody who goes into a polling booth thinking to themselves, oh, I know I can trust my choice to do exactly as I say. And I think everybody also is quite conversant with the MMP. They know that whatever's promised on the hustings won't necessarily survive the coalition bargaining process. But...
No, but Chris Hipkins didn't say, it's our policy, it will be our policy. He said, not on my watch, like Jacinda did a few, that things that they didn't used to, we never used to have a captain such as that they could make calls. But Chris Hipkins hasn't given himself any wriggle room. He hasn't said Labor Party policy is not to do that. We are not running on that policy at the election. He said not while I'm Prime Minister.
I'm not convinced that Parker will. I don't think Parker's got anywhere else to go. I think, there you go, I don't think he'll retire or step down at this coming election. I think he'll stand again. But, well, we'll see. This weekend actually is the critical factor because it's this weekend, Hilary, that the Labor Party will do their list rankings, will deliberate on their list rankings.
Yeah.
And
well, why do you think Chris Hipkins said that about the
I don't know.
list rankings?
Well, I listen, I don't know, but could they really afford to have David Parker throwing his toys out of the cot if he was given a low list ranking? Seriously? 2.5 months out from the election, given the state of things?
No, he's not. I don't think he is going to throw his toys out of the election. I think what will come out is more likely to be that he'll say, I'm retiring. I don't think that... If he was going to do this, he doesn't think they're going to win, I think, clearly. But if they did, he would then want to retire afterwards. I think if they won again and he didn't get his tax...
Okay, I'll put a bottle of wine on it. You're a wine person. You put a bottle of wine, Pinot Noir, of the choice of that Parker does not step down at this coming election. There you go.
Okay, you're saying he won't, but he'll still be there.
No, I'm saying he'll be boots on. He's got nothing else to do.
I think he's going to retire. I think his life work was the Resource Management Act, and it's a crap.
Okay, I say he won't retire, and I say they'll be in their boots all in and the proof of the point. Well, we'll know in about a week, won't we? Because Labor Party will release its list.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. No, because he still might be gone by Christmas anyway. I'm saying he'll be gone by Christmas.
Oh, so you're saying he'll retire after the election when they lose?
Well, it could be either before or after, but he's not going to be there at Christmas.
All right. Okay. Oh, that's an easy one. That's an easy bottle of wine. Gosh, MacArthur's. MacArthur's, you know, that one that's just down the road from you. Is it MacArthur's? They got the... they have that very good... No. MacArthur's. It's the vineyard. MacArthur's Ridge, I think it's called. Oh. And it's on the outskirts of Alexandra, coming from where you live, Otrahua, into Alexandra. Right. Around sort of halfway between Omakau and Alexandra. MacArthur's Ridge, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Brilliant vineyard. They got wine of the year last year, and they've got the top winemaker there who looks after them. Well, they have Matt Connell, and Matt Connell would be New Zealand's best winemaker by a country mile, I would have thought. But anyhow, he's their chief winemaker as well. Yeah. All right, we'll put a bottle of that on it. Is that a deal?
Right. Okay.
Good.
That's a deal.
That's an easy one. All right, now moving on. Kiri Allan, Parker, you also would have been interested, obviously, in your old mate, Rodger Douglas, having a bit of a crack at the ACT Party, saying he's not sure if he's going to vote for them at this coming election. What did you take from that?
Yes, I saw his open letter, and Rodger Douglas is a really interesting person because everybody thinks that he's a hardline whatever. He actually comes from a socialist. No, not socialist. No, that's not right. He really cares about the people at the bottom more than anybody I think I've ever known who could have done anything about it. And what he wants is for everybody to have, like KiwiSaver, only for social welfare, health, education, other things, so that everybody has their own fund to use to do to create their own social looking after, both in retirement and earlier on. And if we all put money into that each year instead of giving the money to the government, we'd all have better choices and they'd be more directed at what we wanted. And if we kept doing it each year, like with KiwiSaver, if everybody had their own KiwiSaver account and we put money in for the people who had nothing, so that they also had a saving scheme, then we wouldn't have like a retirement age in the sense of whether it's 65 or 67 or anything, because you'd have your own fund and you could choose when you retired. You know, there wouldn't be a need for a national retirement age of any description, just as a for example. But he just wants people to have more of their own choice and more of their... And what he's saying is that when I was in Parliament with him, he was annoyed that ACT kept getting diverted with things like law and order policies and 3 strikes and things, when he thought the most important work that you could do was give people these choices. And that ties you sort of back, in some sense, to the Kiri Allan situation, because when you say that we keep saying Maori don't get the same opportunities or whatever it is, if at school, I would add to sort of Rodger's, tweak it a bit and say, if at school what we taught people was we gave people as best we could equal opportunities at the bottom end and taught them how to make good choices, that would do much more for Maori than any teaching of te reo, any teaching of anything else, any other things you do, because it's making good choices that matter, but you have to have good choices, you know, in front of you to make. So,
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's typical Douglas, though, is you should only concentrate on economic policy, and that's why I like David Seymour by comparison as an ACT leader, because Seymour says, well, if we're a party that only appeals on one aspect, which is economic and fiscal policy, people aren't just living that; they have families, which I don't know if Rodger Douglas does, or children. They've got to raise. Well, okay, but he would have raised them for a long, long time.
And children.
Yeah. Well, and he's his mid 80s or something, and now. So I mean, the reality is that ACT today has got to deal with people who have got children. They've got a public health system to talk about. They've got education to worry about, law and order. I mean, you can't appeal to and grow your party if you're only going to talk about one issue.
Politics is the art of the possible, always. And Rodger lived in Parliament for a brief time where you could seriously influence the direction of government in his role, and he took advantage of that, and we haven't changed some of what he did. He's just sad that we haven't gone further down that track, really. And I'm not saying he's right about everything, but that's what he was on about. He was just sort of saying, here's something we should do, and we're just being soft, and we're not going for, you know, we could have achieved this if 30 years ago we'd done this, whatever. And I agree with you that David Seymour is actually in Parliament now, wanting to actually do the best he can with what tools he has available, the art of the possible. So, but Rodger's not saying he would vote Green or Labor. He's saying I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. He's just saying the right is being too timid. And if Act's not going to do it, there's room for a party that did. That's all he's saying, really.
Oh, God. Well, that would be... Actually, the answer to that question is we'll go and have a look at all the anti-mandate parties out there who, along with Winston Peters, who are scrabbling around for maybe 10-12% of the vote that they could possibly get if they were coordinated, but they're not. So they're all going to fall short. I mean, surely Douglas understands politics, doesn't he? Real politics?
Yes, he does. He just wants to say, hey, you guys, get up here, really. So he's not saying...
Can I ask... Well, that raises the next issue.
On all your houses, really.
Yeah, which raises the next issue finally too. You were in local government both as a Dunedin City Councillor and as an Otago Regional Councillor. Three Waters, I think, was introduced when you were still an elected member. And now it is very clear, local government in New Zealand, LGNZ, which is probably the most useless organisation in the history of the planet, but it doesn't matter, is complaining that the submission process on the new Water Services Entities Bill and their chance to have an input into it has been cut back severely, and the government have indicated that they want all the legislation passed, the Water Services Amendment Bill and a whole suite of other legislation connected with it, passed by election day. In your view, as somebody who's been in Parliament and dealt with that environment much more recently than I have, would the passage of the bill prior to the election stop, hurt or hinder the National Act parties from revoking it instantly were they to be elected?
I think they would revoke it. I think it's an unprincipled thing to do in light of the fact that it's pretty, on a good day, evenly balanced. And it's like you do have near the end that caretaker government feel, and you shouldn't be doing that crap. But they sort of, I think National Act have to stop it going through as it is, because it's so stupid in all sorts of ways. It's so poorly thought out. The thinking and the practicality just isn't there in any of this stuff. Just as a for example, on the water, just the water thing, authority has sent something through. Oturihua water supply. It wants this is a very tiny example, but it wants the water tested when it leaves the tanks up on the hill. This is 50 water connections in a tiny village. Tanks up on the hill, it wants to test the water there. That makes sense. When it comes out of your house, tap wants to test it there. That makes sense. So nobody's causing any problem there. And then they want it tested in between, halfway in between, along the pipe.
Who's going to do the testing? Who's going to do the testing? I mean, there are literally hundreds. There are possibly thousands of small water supply in rural areas, in particular, throughout New Zealand. I think there's 1,000 in Clutha alone, according to their mayor. So who's going to do the testing?
Each of those. Well, there's a water company running the water in the Ida Valley, and they are obliged to. And there's the water authority tells you what you have to do and says, do this, do that, here's the forms and things, which are complete nonsense crap forms. So it won't get better water. What it might do is all these, when you say thousands of them, all these ones could just wake up in the morning and say, too hard, we're not doing this anymore. You, the government, you do it. Why don't you? You provide water for us. But it's just an example of the lack of practicality.
Thank you very much, Hilary, for joining us again, and for your insights. Very much appreciated. Always intelligent. Thank you very much. Talk to you next Tuesday.
Okay, see ya. Bye.